The sky darkened over New York City at exactly 2:17 p.m. on a Tuesday. It wasn't clouds. It wasn't an eclipse. It was them. Commander Alex Reed stood on the roof of the United Earth Defense Headquarters, his eyes fixed on the massive shape blocking out the sun. The alien ship hung in the air like a mountain turned upside down, its dark metal surface catching no light. Behind him, his team waited in silence, their faces pale. "How many?" Alex asked, his voice steady despite the fear twisting his gut. Lieutenant Davis checked the readings on her tablet. 17 ships, sir, same size, positioned over major cities worldwide. Alex nodded, taking a deep breath of the suddenly cold air. 6 months ago, he had been teaching military strategy at the academy. Now he was facing the first confirmed alien contact in human history, and it didn't look friendly. "Get me a line to Central Command," he ordered, turning away from the impossible sight above. "And someone find out if our satellites can tell us anything about those ships." Inside the command center, chaos had given way to grim efficiency. Screens lined the walls, showing similar scenes from London, Beijing, Moscow, and other cities. The world's militaries were on high alert, but no one had fired. "Not yet." "Sir, we're picking up a signal," called out Communications Officer Ryan, his fingers flying over his keyboard. "It's being broadcast on all frequencies, all channels, even private devices." The main screen flickered, then filled with an image that made Alex's heart skip. The creature on screen was tall, with gray-blue skin that seemed to shimmer like oil on water. Its eyes were large, completely black, and showed no emotion. "People of Earth." It spoke in perfect English, its voice deep and echoing. "We are the Voidwalkers. We have observed your kind for centuries. You have potential, but you waste it on war and greed. Your time of independence has ended. You will now serve a greater purpose under our guidance." The alien paused, its head tilting slightly. "You have 48 hours to dismantle your weapons, dissolve your governments, and prepare to receive our representatives. Kneel, and you will survive. Resist, and you will be eradicated." The screen went black. The room erupted in voices until Alex slammed his hand on the table. "Enough, get me the president now." In the underground lab of the Pentagon, military analyst James Walker stared at lines of code scrolling across his screen. He hadn't slept in 24 hours, not since the ships arrived. Coffee cups surrounded his workspace like a miniature city. "Found anything?" asked Dr. Miller, the head scientist, her eyes red from lack of sleep. James rubbed his face. "Maybe. Their broadcast signal used our own satellites to boost the message. That means they had to connect to our systems first. And nobody breaks into a house without leaving footprints." James turned his screen to show her. "See these packets of data? They're not part of the message. They're command signals to their fleet. All 17 ships received the same instructions, at once." Dr. Miller leaned closer. "They're using our infrastructure for their own communications." "Yes. They're powerful, but they're efficient. Why build their own network when they can hijack ours?" James highlighted a section of code. "And here's the interesting part. All their ships sync to a master frequency. It's like they're all parts of one big machine. Is that useful to us?" James allowed himself a small smile. "If we can disrupt that sync, we might be able to throw a wrench in their plans. I need a team and access to all radio telescopes we can control." The emergency United Nations session was the shortest in history. Representatives from 195 nations gathered virtually as the alien ships loomed overhead. President Morgan of the United States stood at the podium in New York, her face resolute despite the shadow of the ship above the building. "They demand our surrender," she said simply. "They expect us to kneel without a fight. Some of my advisors suggest we should comply, at least temporarily." The Russian president's voice came through clearly. "And what do you suggest, Madam President?" Morgan's eyes hardened. "Humanity has never prospered under the boot of tyrants. I suggest we show these Voidwalkers that Earth is not theirs to claim." A murmur ran through the assembly. The Chinese premier spoke next. "Our military analysis suggests their technology far exceeds our own. Fighting could mean extinction. So could surrender." Morgan replied. We have intercepted communications between their ships. Our analysts believe they have found a potential weakness. On screens around the world, James Walker's findings were displayed. As he explained the synchronization vulnerability, faces changed from despair to cautious hope. We need time, Morgan continued. I propose we send a message requesting an extension of their deadline. We ask questions, express confusion, anything to buy our scientists more time while we secretly prepare. The vote was unanimous. Alex Reed watched the alien response from the war room. The same Voidwalker appeared, looking almost amused. Your request for clarification is noted. We will extend the deadline by 24 hours. Your questions reveal your primitive understanding. Know this. 63 civilizations have joined our collective. None have regretted their decision, because we eliminated those who would. As the message ended, Alex turned to the president. They're overconfident. Good. Morgan nodded. How's Walker's team progressing? They've identified the exact frequency, patterns. They think they can create a disruption device, but they need more time and resources. They have both. I've authorized everything they need. The president looked around the room at the military leaders gathered there. We need to prepare our people for what's coming. Some cities may be lost before we can implement Walker's plan. General Thompson, a veteran of 3 wars, spoke up. We should evacuate major cities, move people underground where possible, and our official response to their demand? Asked the Secretary of State. Morgan stood straighter. We're almost out of time. We send it now. She stepped to the microphone and spoke the words that would define humanity's future. Voidwalkers, we have received your demands. We have studied your ships. We have considered our options. Here is humanity's answer. We stand, we fight, we survive. Earth will never kneel. In his lab, James Walker heard the president's message and worked faster. His team had built 3 prototype disruptors. If they worked, they would scramble the sync signal between alien ships, potentially disabling their coordinated functions. How long until they respond? Asked his assistant. James checked his watch. If they keep to their timeline, about 5 minutes. 4 minutes later, the sky above New York lit up with energy as the alien ship fired its first weapon. The blast destroyed the top floors of 3 skyscrapers. Similar reports came in from other cities. The invasion had begun, but humanity had made its choice. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the aliens were about to learn that humans don't break easily. In fact, they fight hardest when pushed to the edge. The war for Earth had just begun. Night fell across what remained of Washington, D.C. Fires burned in the government district where the Voidwalkers had focused their first attack. 3 hours had passed since President Morgan's defiant message, and the aliens had responded with swift violence. But they hadn't destroyed everything. They were being careful, strategic. This wasn't blind rage, it was calculated intimidation. Commander Alex Reed walked through the underground bunker that now served as the temporary White House. Military personnel rushed past him carrying equipment and reports. The world's resistance was organizing faster than anyone had expected. Commander, a voice called out. Alex turned to see President Morgan emerging from the communications room, her face streaked with dust but her eyes clear and determined. Madam President, Alex saluted. Are you hurt? I'm fine, she waved off his concern. What's the status of Walker's project? Alex fell into step beside her as they moved deeper into the bunker. He's made progress. The disruption theory checks out in simulations. They're building more devices now, but we need a way to deploy them. They entered the war room where screens showed the devastation across major cities. Paris was burning. Tokyo had lost power. But strangely, the aliens seemed to be avoiding maximum damage. They were taking out military installations, government buildings, and communication centers, but civilian casualties were lower than expected. They want us intact, Morgan observed. Not dead, but broken. Slaves need to be alive to work, General Thompson added grimly from his position at the main table. The president addressed the room. I've spoken with other world leaders. Russia and China have moved their commands underground. Europe is coordinating a unified defense. We stand together. She took a deep breath. Now I need options. How do we hurt them back? In the lab beneath the Rocky Mountains, James Walker connected the final wire on the fifth disruption device. Each one was about the size of a microwave, with antennas arranged in a specific pattern to broadcast the counter frequency. Will 5 be enough? Asked Dr. Miller as she checked the power cells. No, James admitted. But it's a start. If they work as expected, we can build more. He wiped sweat from his forehead. The real problem is getting them close enough to the alien ships. The signal needs to be strong. The door to the lab slid open, and a tall, thin man in an Air Force uniform entered. That's where I come in, he said. Colonel Frank West, Special Operations. James stood up straighter. Colonel. At ease, West said with a small smile. I understand you've built something that might give us a fighting chance. Maybe, James said cautiously. If we can get them within half a mile of each ship. West nodded. My team specializes in impossible deliveries. Show me what we're working with. As James explained the technology, Dr. Miller received an alert on her tablet. Her face paled. They've started landing ground forces. New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, all reporting alien troops. The first Voidwalker to set foot on Earth stepped from a smaller craft that descended from the mothership above New York. It stood nearly 7 feet tall, its body protected by armor that seemed to flow like liquid metal. 5 more followed, each carrying weapons that hummed with energy. A small group of human soldiers had established a barricade nearby, ordered to observe but not engage. Lieutenant Davis peered through binoculars, reporting back to Commander Reed via a secure line. They're moving toward the financial district, she whispered. 6 of them, sir. They seem to be scanning buildings. Stay hidden, Alex ordered through the comm. Do not engage unless directly threatened. But the Voidwalkers weren't interested in fighting. Not yet. They moved with purpose toward the New York Stock Exchange building. One placed a device on the main entrance. The doors slid open despite the security lockdown. They're accessing our financial data, Alex realized, turning to his team at headquarters. They're gathering intelligence, figuring out how our world works. Similar reports came in from other cities. The aliens were targeting key infrastructure, power plants, water treatment facilities, data centers. They weren't destroying them, they were studying them. They're planning for occupation, President Morgan said when Alex reported this pattern. Not extinction. That gives us time, Alex replied. And time is what we need. 3 days after first contact, the resistance began. Colonel West's team deployed the first disruption device in Chicago. They used a modified drone flying it close to the underside of the hovering alien ship before activating the signal. James Walker watched the live feed from his lab, holding his breath. If this works, he whispered, we'll see a reaction within 30 seconds. 28 seconds later, the alien ship shuddered. Its smooth hovering pattern became irregular. Lights flickered across its surface. Then, to everyone's amazement, it began to sink slowly toward the ground. Cheers erupted in the command center. But James raised a hand for silence. It's not crashing, he warned. It's making a controlled descent. We didn't disable it completely, just disrupted its hover systems. Still, it was the first sign that the Voidwalkers could be hurt. The news spread across resistance channels worldwide. In London, as the alien ship touched down in Hyde Park, something unexpected happened. A group of civilians, ignoring evacuation orders, rushed the landed vessel. Military commanders watched in horror, expecting the humans to be slaughtered. Instead, they reached the ship before the Voidwalkers could respond. Using improvised explosives, they breached a lower section of the hull. Most died in the assault. But 3 made it inside. Who are they? President Morgan demanded, watching. The grainy footage. Former military, came the reply. British Special Forces who volunteered for a suicide mission. Not suicide, Alex corrected. They're carrying cameras. For 40 precious minutes, those cameras transmitted images from inside the alien vessel. Corridors of flowing metal. control systems that responded to touch, and most importantly, voidwalkers without their armor. The aliens were physically weaker than humans had expected. Their superiority lay in their technology, not their bodies. When the transmission finally cut off, the command center was silent. Then General Thompson spoke what everyone was thinking: they can be killed. James Walker studied the footage obsessively. "Look at their technology," he told Dr. Miller. "It's all connected. The ship responds to them like it's alive." "Some kind of neural interface," she suggested. "Exactly. And if they need to sync with their ships..." He looked up, eyes wide with realization. "We don't just need to disrupt ship-to-ship communication. We need to disrupt their connection to their own technology." As he spoke, reports came in of another alien landing, this time at a major technology research center in Japan. The Voidwalkers were gathering Earth's most advanced tech. "They're not just studying us," James realized. "They're looking for something specific." President Morgan received the news with grim determination. "Then we need to find it first. Whatever they want, we need to either destroy it or use it against them." The resistance was growing stronger. Underground networks formed as people shared information and resources. Humanity was adapting, learning to fight an enemy they barely understood. Cities burned, but hope hadn't died. And somewhere in England, a captured alien ship held secrets that might turn the tide of war. 2 weeks after the Voidwalkers arrived, Earth was a different world. Major cities stood partially destroyed, with alien patrols moving through streets once filled with human life. But the invaders had not won yet. Not by far. Deep in the mountains of Colorado, Commander Alex Reed looked at a map showing resistance cells across the globe. Thousands of blinking lights represented groups fighting back against the alien occupation. "Operation Defiance is ready," he told President Morgan, who had aged years in mere days. "Walker's disruption technology has been distributed to every major resistance hub." Morgan nodded, the weight of humanity's survival heavy on her shoulders. "What's the success rate in testing?" 87%, Alex replied. "The devices work, Madam President. When activated simultaneously, they should create enough interference to disable their ship's systems for approximately 15 minutes. 15 minutes to change the course of human history," she said quietly. "Let's make them count." Engineer Tom Rogers had never considered himself a hero. Before the invasion, he had been working on clean energy systems for a small tech company. Now he was putting the finishing touches on what might be humanity's most important weapon. "The sync disruptors are brilliant," he told James Walker as they worked side by side in the underground facility. "But I've been thinking, what if we could do more than just disrupt their signals? What if we could hijack them?" James looked up from his computer. "Hijack? You mean take control of their systems?" Tom nodded excitedly. "The footage from inside their ship shows they use some kind of neural interface. Their tech responds to them. But it's still technology, signals, frequencies, code. And code can be hacked," James finished, understanding dawning on his face. "What do you need?" "Time," Tom said grimly. "Which is the one thing we don't have." The alarm sounded before James could respond. Red lights flashed throughout the facility. The Voidwalkers had found them. The attack on the mountain facility was swift and precise. Alien craft smaller than the motherships, fighters the humans called them, blasted through the outer defenses. Troops poured in through the breach, their liquid metal armor flowing around them as they moved. "Evacuate all personnel through the emergency tunnels," Alex ordered over the comm system. "Priority 1 is getting Walker and Rogers out with their research." He grabbed his rifle and joined a group of soldiers forming a defensive position. The aliens moved with frightening efficiency, their weapons firing bursts of energy that melted through concrete walls, but the humans had been preparing. As the first Voidwalker turned the corner, Alex activated one of the disruption devices. The alien's armor suddenly froze, becoming rigid and heavy. Without its technology functioning properly, the creature stumbled, vulnerable for crucial seconds, long, enough for human bullets to find the weak spots beneath. "They work!" a soldier shouted. "The disruptors work against their armor, too." Hope surged through the defenders. For every human that fell, they took down 3 aliens. It wasn't enough to win this battle, but it proved something vital. The Void Walkers could be fought. They could be beaten. Dr. Miller led James and Tom through the escape tunnels, carrying hard drives containing all their research. Behind them, the sounds of battle echoed through the mountain. "We need to get to the backup facility in Nevada," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "President Morgan is waiting there with the prototype." "What prototype?" James asked, breathing hard as they ran. "The one built from parts taken from the captured ship in London," she replied. "It's what the Void Walkers have been searching for, why they hit our facility so hard." As they emerged from the tunnel exit hidden among trees, a military helicopter waited, rotors already spinning. Colonel West waved them in urgently. "Did Alex make it out?" James asked as they lifted off. West's grim expression answered before his words did. Commander Reed stayed behind to ensure the evacuation. His last transmission said to proceed with Operation Defiance no matter what. The Nevada facility was smaller but better hidden. President Morgan greeted them personally when they arrived, her eyes red but determined. Commander Reed's sacrifice will not be in vain, she told them. "We've received confirmation the attack on your facility wasn't isolated. They've struck at every major resistance center we know about." "They're scared," Tom said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. "Think about it. Why commit so many resources to wiping us out now? Because they know we've found their weakness." Morgan nodded. "And that's why we're accelerating the timetable. Operation Defiance begins in 12 hours. She led them to a secure room where a strange device sat on a pedestal. It looked both alien and human, Voidwalker technology merged with Earth engineering. "This is what we pulled from the ship in London," Morgan explained. "Their central navigation system. With it, we can not only disrupt their ships but potentially take control of one." James stared at the device. "That's why they've been searching our tech centers. They're looking for compatible systems they can use to enhance their control over their own technology." "Exactly," Morgan confirmed. "And now we're going to use it against them." Operation Defiance began at dawn. Across the world, resistance fighters moved into position near alien ships. Each team carried disruption devices, waiting for the signal. In orbit, the remains of Earth's satellite network had been reprogrammed for one crucial broadcast. In Nevada, Tom Rogers made the final adjustments to the hybrid device. "It's ready," he told the president. "When this activates, it will send the disruption signal to every satellite, which will then amplify it worldwide." "And the captured ship?" Morgan asked. "If our modifications work, the signal should override their systems rather than just disrupting them. We'll have control, temporarily." Morgan looked around at the faces of humanity's last hope. "Begin the countdown." At precisely 7 a.m. GMT, Operation Defiance launched. The hybrid device activated, sending its signal to the satellites. Across the globe, every Voidwalker ship suddenly shuddered. Their smooth surfaces rippled as if in pain. The smaller craft fell from the sky, crashing into empty buildings and open fields. The mothership's lights flickered and died. In London, where the first ship had been captured, something remarkable happened. The alien vessel that had rested in Hyde Park for days suddenly powered up. Its entry ramp lowered. Colonel West led a team inside expecting resistance. Instead, they found the ship's systems responding to human commands. On screens throughout the vessel, alien text shifted and changed, translating itself into English. "No." "Worked," West breathed, activating his comm. "Madam President, we have control of the London ship. I repeat, we have control." Similar reports came in from other locations. The disruption was working better than anyone had hoped. The Voidwalkers, cut off from their technology, were vulnerable. Human forces struck back, capturing alien weapons and turning them against their former owners. For the first time since the invasion began, the aliens retreated. In the captured London ship, James Walker and Tom Rogers worked frantically to understand the alien systems before their advantage disappeared. "Look at this," James called out, pointing to a screen displaying what appeared to be star maps. "These are navigation charts." Coordinates. To what? Tom asked, joining him. To their home world, James said, his voice filled with wonder and determination. And to every planet in their empire. As the 15-minute window of disruption ended, the humans had gained something the Void Walkers never expected to give them. A way to take the fight beyond Earth. The tide of war had turned. Humanity would no longer just defend, they would attack. 1 month after Operation Defiance, the war for Earth had reached a stalemate. The Void Walkers still controlled much of the planet's surface, but humanity had carved out safe zones, protected by disruption field generators. The aliens could no longer simply overwhelm humans with their technology. In the captured ship now housed in a massive hangar beneath the Nevada desert, Captain Lisa Reed stood before a group of volunteers. The sister of the fallen Commander Alex Reed, she had taken up his mission with fierce determination. This ship, she said, her voice echoing in the cavernous space, has been renamed the Reckoning. It is humanity's first starship, and you are its first crew. The 50 men and women before her represented the best Earth had to offer. Pilots, soldiers, scientists, and engineers from nations around the world. The mission is simple but dangerous, Lisa continued. We will travel to the Voidwalker homeworld using their own navigation system. We will gather intelligence, make contact with any potential allies, and if possible, bring back technology that can help us drive them from Earth forever. James Walker stepped forward. The ship's systems are now fully under our control, thanks to Tom Rogers' interface technology. We've learned enough of their language to operate it, and the engines are ready. President Morgan entered the hangar, her presence silencing the gathered crew. What you are about to attempt has never been done in human history, she said solemnly. You will travel farther than any human has ever gone, face dangers we cannot imagine, and carry with you the hopes of everyone on this planet. She looked at each of them in turn. Some of you, perhaps many of you, will not return. But know this. You go not just as soldiers or explorers, but as the first ambassadors of a united Earth. 3 days later, the Reckoning lifted off from Earth under cover of darkness. Tom Rogers had modified the ship's external appearance using adaptive camouflage technology reverse-engineered from Voidwalker armor. From a distance, it would appear to be just another alien vessel. Inside the bridge, Lisa took her place in the captain's chair. Around her, the human crew worked at stations, designed for beings with very different bodies. They had adapted quickly, using modified interfaces where needed. All systems ready, reported the engineer at the propulsion station. Disruption field is active. No signs of alien detection. Lisa nodded. Take us up, slow and steady. The ship rose through the atmosphere, passing the debris of satellites and the remaining Voidwalker vessels in orbit. For a tense few minutes they waited to see if they would be challenged. Nothing happened. They think we're one of them, James said from his station where he monitored communications. The camouflage is working. Lisa allowed herself a small smile. Set course for the first jump point. Let's see if this thing can really travel between stars. The Voidwalker's navigation system indicated a specific point in space far beyond the orbit of Mars. As they approached it, sensors detected an unusual energy pattern. It looks like some kind of fold in space, reported the science officer. Similar to the theoretical models for wormholes, but artificially created. This is how they traveled to Earth so quickly, James realized. They have a network of these jump points connecting their empire. Lisa gripped the arms of her chair. Take us through. Standard alert status. The ship accelerated toward the jump point. For a moment, the view screen showed a strange distortion, then blackness, followed by a field of unfamiliar stars. Jump complete, announced the navigation officer. According to the ship's data, we're 27 light-years from Earth. A stunned silence fell over the bridge. Humanity had just traveled a distance that would have taken conventional spacecraft centuries in mere seconds. Check the star maps, Lisa ordered, recovering quickly. How many more jumps to the Voidwalker homeworld? 3, came the reply. But there's something else. The navigation system shows dozens of other inhabited worlds connected by this network. Some are marked differently from others. James studied the data closely. I think the ones marked in red are conquered worlds, planets like Earth that have been absorbed into their empire. And the others? Lisa asked. Possibly allies, or maybe future targets. The second jump brought them to a system with 3 habitable planets. The ship's database identified them as part of the Voidwalker Empire for over 200 years. Should investigate, suggested Dr. Miller, who had insisted on joining the mission. This could be our chance to understand what happens to worlds after the Voidwalkers take over. Lisa considered the risk. We'll maintain orbit around the outermost planet. Passive scans only. I don't want to alert anyone to our presence. The scans revealed something unexpected. The planets were heavily industrialized with massive mining operations and manufacturing centers, but the biological readings showed diverse species, not just Voidwalkers. They're using these worlds as factory planets, James said, as he analyzed the data. And those readings suggest slave labor. Dr. Miller pointed to another set of readings. Look at these transmission patterns. The planets are communicating with each other, but on frequencies hidden from the main Voidwalker network. An underground resistance, Lisa realized, even after centuries of occupation. The decision was made quickly. Lisa authorized a small team to take one of the ship's shuttles to the surface, disguised as a routine Voidwalker patrol. James volunteered to lead it. On the surface of the third planet, James and his team made contact with the resistance. The beings they met were physically different from humans, 6-limbed with iridescent skin. But the look in their eyes was achingly familiar. Determination, defiance, and hope, nearly extinguished but still burning. Their leader called himself Traz. You are not Voidwalkers, he said when they revealed themselves. What manner of beings are you? We're humans from a planet called Earth, James explained. The Voidwalkers invaded our world, but we're fighting back. We've captured one of their ships and followed their jump network here. Traz's eyes widened. You resist? And you can control their technology? The concept seemed almost impossible to him. No species has successfully fought them in 1,000 years. James showed him images of Operation Defiance, the disruption technology, the captured ships, the human counterattack. We found a weakness in their systems, and we're looking for allies. Traz conferred with his people in their own language. Finally, he turned back to James. There are others like us, many worlds where resistance still lives, hidden beneath the surface. We have communicated in secret for generations, waiting for an opportunity. Now you have one, James said. We're going to the Voidwalker homeworld. If we can strike at the heart of their empire, they would weaken everywhere, Traz finished. Their control systems are centralized. That is how they maintain power. Over so many worlds. Before James left, Traz gave him a data crystal. This contains communication frequencies for resistance movements on 12 worlds. Tell them the long night ends. They will understand. Back on the Reckoning, Lisa listened to James's report with growing excitement. So we're not alone in this fight. Far from it, James replied. There's an entire network of oppressed species waiting for someone to lead them against the Voidwalkers. And they've just found their leader, Dr. Miller said, looking at Lisa. Humanity. Lisa studied the star map where the path to the Voidwalker homeworld glowed brightly. Send messages on those frequencies. Tell every resistance cell what we're planning. She straightened in her chair. The Voidwalkers wanted Earth to kneel. Instead, we're going to build an alliance that will end their empire forever. The Reckoning prepared for its next jump, one step closer to the heart of enemy territory. The Voidwalker homeworld hung in space like a dark jewel. Unlike Earth with its blues and greens, this planet was mostly black and purple, with strange glowing patterns visible even from orbit. Massive structures extended from the surface into space, a civilization that had outgrown its planetary origins. On the bridge of the Reckoning, Captain Lisa Reed watched the alien world grow larger on the view screen. The ship had completed its final jump an hour ago, arriving at the edge of the system before moving inward using conventional propulsion. Any sign they've detected us? She asked. None so far, replied the tactical officer. Our disguise is holding. They're registering us as a returning patrol ship. Next to Lisa, James Walker studied the incoming data with growing excitement. There's more activity here than I expected. Hundreds of ships moving in and out. This isn't just their homeworld, it's the center of their entire empire. Dr. Miller joined them, pointing to a specific reading. Look at that energy signature. It's consistent with what we saw at the jump points, but much stronger. I think their whole network is controlled from here. Lisa nodded. Which means if we can disrupt it, we could cut off their entire empire, James finished. Every Voidwalker ship on every conquered world, including Earth, would be isolated. The communications officer turned suddenly. Captain, we're receiving transmissions from the resistance networks. 12 worlds have risen up simultaneously, just as planned. The Voidwalkers are pulling ships back to deal with the rebellions. A tight smile formed on Lisa's lips. Perfect timing. The distraction will make our approach easier. She turned to address the bridge crew. This is the moment we've been preparing for. Our mission is clear. Locate the central control hub and deploy our upgraded disruption technology. She touched the badge on her uniform, one that had belonged to her brother. For Earth. For Commander Reed. For every world that refused to kneel. The reckoning moved through the crowded orbital lanes of the Voidwalker homeworld. Traffic control directed them to a docking station near one of the massive space elevators. As they approached, the crew held their breath, knowing discovery would mean instant destruction. Docking procedure initiated, reported the helmsman. Their automated systems are taking control. Let them, Lisa ordered. Maintain our disguise, until we're secure. The ship settled into a massive docking bay alongside dozens of similar vessels. Through the viewports they could see Voidwalkers moving about, unaware that their enemies had arrived at the heart of their empire. Security teams, prepare for deployment, Lisa commanded. Science team, pinpoint the location of the central control hub. We'll have a limited window once we begin. James studied the data flowing through the ship's systems. Now that they were connected to the main network, they could access far more information. I've found it, he said after several tense minutes. The control hub is located in the central tower. It's heavily guarded, but what? Lisa prompted. But they never expected anyone to reach this far. Their security is focused outward, not inward. Tom Rogers, who had spent the journey refining his interface technology, spoke up. I've completed the final modifications to our disruptors. Instead of simply jamming their systems, these will inject a virus into their network. One that will spread to every connected ship and installation. How long until it takes effect? Lisa asked. Once deployed? Minutes. But someone has to physically reach the central hub. Lisa's expression hardened. Then that's what we'll do. The infiltration team consisted of 12 humans wearing modified Voidwalker armor. The liquid metal flowed around them uncomfortably, but it provided perfect camouflage. Lisa led them through the vast structure, following James's directions transmitted from the ship. 2 levels up, his voice came through their earpieces. There should be a main transport tube. It will take you directly to the central tower. The alien city was both beautiful and terrifying. Structures seemed to flow rather than stand, with technology integrated into every surface. Voidwalkers moved with purpose, never suspecting the threat in their midst. They reached the transport tube, without incident. As they stepped onto the platform, a true Voidwalker approached them. It spoke in the clicking, humming language of its kind. Lisa froze, but Tom had prepared for this. A small device at her throat translated her whispered words into Voidwalker speech. Routine maintenance inspection, she replied. The alien stared at them for a long moment. Then it moved away, apparently satisfied. That was close, one of the team whispered as they entered the transport tube. Stay focused, Lisa replied. We're not done yet. The central tower rose like a black spire in the heart of the alien capital. As they ascended its levels, the team encountered heavier security. Elite Voidwalker guards with advanced weapons and armor. We can't avoid them all, Lisa realized. Prepare for combat. When the first confrontation came, it was swift and brutal. The guards detected something wrong with the infiltration team's movements and challenged them. Lisa gave the signal, and the humans activated their disruption devices. The effect was immediate. The Voidwalkers' armor froze, their weapons powered down, and for crucial seconds they were vulnerable. Human weapons, enhanced with alien technology, cut them down before they could recover. Alarms began to sound throughout the structure. "We've been compromised," Lisa barked into her comm. "James, we need a direct route to the control hub, now." "3 levels up, central chamber," he replied. "But you'll face heavy resistance. The entire complex is going on lockdown." Lisa looked at her team. 3 were injured, 1 fatally. "We move fast, we hit hard, no hesitation." They fought their way upward, using their disruption technology to create windows of opportunity. Voidwalker troops fell before them, but the humans suffered losses too. By the time they reached the final approach to the control hub, only Lisa and 4 others remained. "Tom," she called through the comm. "We're almost there. The virus ready?" "Ready," he confirmed. "Just get it into any console in the main control room." The doors to the control hub were sealed. One of the team placed explosive charges while the others prepared for a final push. "On my mark," Lisa said. "Weapons ready. 3, 2, 1. The doors blew inward. The humans charged through the smoke, disruption fields at maximum strength. Inside, a dozen Voidwalkers worked at strange, flowing consoles that seemed alive with energy. At the center stood one larger than the rest, clearly a leader. The leader spoke, and to everyone's surprise, it was in perfect English. "Humans, you should have knelt when you had the chance." "We don't kneel," Lisa replied, firing her weapon. "We fight." The battle was chaotic and desperate. The elite Voidwalkers recovered from disruption faster than any they had fought before. The humans used everything they had: alien weapons, disruption fields, and pure determination. Lisa took a hit to her shoulder but kept moving toward the central console. One by one, her teammates fell, buying her the seconds she needed. When she reached the console, she slammed Tom's device onto its surface. The Voidwalker leader lunged for her, but it was too late. The device activated, sending the virus surging through the network. The console flickered, then glowed bright red. Throughout the room, systems began to fail. "What have you done?" the leader demanded. Lisa smiled through her pain. "We've burned your empire to dust." On the reckoning, James watched as the virus spread through the Voidwalker network. Jump points across the galaxy began to collapse. Control signals to occupied worlds, including Earth, went silent. The entire empire, built over thousands of years, unraveled in minutes. "Captain Reed," he called through the comm. "The virus is working. Their entire network is collapsing. What's your status?" Static answered him. Then faintly, "Mission accomplished. Get our people home." "Lisa, we're coming for you." "No." Her voice came stronger now. "I've set the central hub to overload. The entire planet's defense grid is about to fail. Get the ship out of here and tell Earth we won." James wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. "Understood, Captain. Your brother would be proud." As the Reckoning broke free from its docking bay, the Voidwalker defenses began to fire randomly. Their coordination lost. Behind them, the massive central tower glowed with building energy. The ship made an emergency jump just as the explosion began, a chain reaction that would sweep across the Voidwalker homeworld. 1 month later, President Morgan addressed the people of Earth. The Voidwalker ships had fallen silent, their troops in disarray. Without the central network, they had become isolated units that could be defeated one by one. "Today we remember the brave crew of the Reckoning," she said solemnly. "They took our fight to the stars and struck a blow for freedom, not just for Earth, but for countless worlds across the galaxy." She gestured to the representatives standing beside her, beings from a dozen different planets who had arrived in ships of their own design. The Voidwalkers told humanity to kneel. Instead, we rose up. We fought. and we have forged new bonds with civilizations we never knew existed. Today marks not just our victory, but the beginning of humanity's true place among the stars. High, above Earth, the Reckoning, now commanded by James Walker, prepared for its next mission. Not for war this time, but for exploration. The stars beckoned, full of both danger and promise. And humanity, having refused to kneel, now stood taller than ever before. The grand meeting hall of the Araxian Empire buzzed with excitement. 50 high-ranking military officers sat around a massive table shaped like their home planet. Admiral Clev, the oldest and most respected commander, stood at the head of the table. His gray skin wrinkled as he frowned at the holographic display showing the border between Araxian and human space. "The humans have pulled back their ships," Admiral Clev said, pointing to the empty zones that once held human defense stations. "Our scouts confirm it. They leave their outer colonies almost unprotected." Captain Reed, younger than most in the A room but rising quickly through the ranks, leaned forward. "Why would they do this? It makes no sense." "Fear," said General Moore with a laugh that shook his massive shoulders. "They have heard of our new battleships. They know they cannot win." The room filled with agreeing nods and confident smiles. The Araxian Empire had ruled this part of the galaxy for 2,000 years. Humans were newcomers barely 2 centuries into space travel. What could they possibly know about real war? Reed wasn't convinced. What about the stories? The missing ships near their territory? The room grew quiet. Everyone had heard the rumors. 12 Araxian ships gone without a trace over the past year. No distress calls, no debris. Just gone. Admiral Clev waved his hand dismissively. "Propaganda. The humans spread these tales to seem mysterious and dangerous. Our ships were lost to normal space hazards or pilot error. But the timing," Reed started. "Enough." General Moore slammed his fist on the table. "Are you scared of human ghost stories, Captain?" Reed straightened his back. "No, sir. I simply believe we should consider all possibilities." "The only possibility," Admiral Clev said firmly, "is that the humans recognize our superiority and retreat rather than face destruction. The Emperor has ordered us to claim their outer systems. We move in 3 days." After the meeting ended, Reed walked slowly through the massive hallways of the Imperial Command Center. The walls displayed scenes of Araxian victories in past wars, hundreds of battles, dozens of conquered species. None had stood against them for long. Yet something bothered him about the human retreat. It didn't match what he knew about them. Humans were stubborn. They didn't give up territory easily. "You look troubled in there," said a voice behind him. Reed turned to see Intelligence Officer Dren, a thin, quiet Araxian known for her brilliant analysis. "The humans are planning something," Reed said. "This is too easy." Dren nodded. "I've studied their battle history. They often appear to retreat before striking back in unexpected ways. Have you told the Admiral?" "I've tried." Dren sighed. He believes what he wants to believe. The Empire has never lost, so he cannot imagine losing now. Reed stopped walking and lowered his voice. "What about the missing ships? Do you think the rumors are true?" "About the human ghost ship, the one that leaves no traces?" Dren's eyes narrowed. "I don't know about ghosts, but 12 of our ships didn't just disappear by accident. Some say it's not really a ship at all," Reed whispered. "Something new. Something we don't understand." Dren looked around to make sure no one could hear them. 3 months ago, I intercepted a partial human communication. It mentioned something called Ghost Protocol and distributed warfare. I couldn't decode more, but it didn't sound like conventional weapons. A chill ran down Reed's spine. "Did you report this?" "Of course." It was dismissed as meaningless chatter. Dren straightened her uniform. "The Empire believes bigger is always better. They cannot imagine any other way to fight." 3 days later, the invasion began. Reed watched from the bridge of his ship, the Relentless, as the massive Araxian fleet moved toward human space. 100 ships ranging from small scouts to the enormous dreadnought commanded by Admiral Clev himself. The first human system fell without resistance. The small colony on its outer planet had been evacuated. The few defensive satellites were easily destroyed, see? Commander Tark said, smiling at Reed as they received reports of the victory. The humans run like prey animals. The second system fell just as easily, and the third. Each time the humans seemed to have just left, taking their people and as much equipment as they could carry. Reed's unease grew with each bloodless victory. This wasn't war as he understood it. Where was the human fleet? Their famous determination? Their ingenuity that other species often praised? 1 week into the invasion, with 5 human systems under Araxian control, the first strange reports came in. A scout ship on the edge of conquered territory reported unusual sensor readings before going silent. 2 more scouts sent to investigate also disappeared. Sensor malfunction, Admiral Clev announced during the daily briefing. Or perhaps desertion. We will deal with them when they return. But Reed noticed Dren's expression. She didn't believe it either. That night, unable to sleep, Reed accessed the ship's library and researched human battle tactics throughout their short but violent history. What he found disturbed him. Humans rarely fought the same way twice. They adapted. They surprised their enemies, and they often let their opponents advance before closing a trap. The next morning, 3 more ships were missing. This time, 1 had managed to send a partial message. Cannot see it. Systems failing. It's not where it appears to be. Admiral Clev called an emergency meeting. For the first time, Reed saw worry on the old commander's face. We believe the humans have deployed some kind of stealth technology, Clev announced. Something that interferes with our sensors. Nothing to fear, but we will move forward more carefully. Captain Reed looked around the room. Most officers nodded, relieved to have an explanation. But Dren met his eyes across the table, her expression grim. After the meeting, she passed him in the hallway and whispered, "It's happening. The ghost ship. But I don't think it's a ship at all." "What do you mean?" Reed asked. "I need proof first," Dren said. "Meet me in Analysis Lab 3 tonight. Tell no one." But Dren never arrived at their meeting. Reed waited for 2 hours before returning to his quarters, worried but unsure what to do. The next morning, the invasion continued. The fleet approached the 6th human system, expecting another easy victory. Reed stood at his post on the bridge, scanning the seemingly empty space before them. And then, for just a moment, his sensors detected something impossible. Thousands of tiny objects, moving in perfect coordination, surrounding the Araxian fleet on all sides. They appeared and disappeared so quickly that Reed thought he might have imagined it, but the look of shock on Commander Tark's face told him others had seen it too. "What was that?" Tark demanded. Before anyone could answer, a message appeared on every screen in the fleet. The words were simple in perfect Araxian language. "You sought the dreaded ship. But how can you find what doesn't exist as you understand existence? Turn back now." As the message faded, Reed realized a terrible truth. The humans hadn't been retreating out of fear. They had been luring the Araxians in. Commander Tark stood tall on the bridge of the Araxian warship Dominance, watching the stars through the massive viewport. His chest swelled with pride as he led the vanguard fleet deeper into human territory. Behind him, 30 ships formed, a perfect attack formation. Their silver hulls gleamed in the light of an unfamiliar sun. "Commander," called out Navigator Lox from her station, "we've reached the edge of the Vega system. Scans show 3 inhabited planets, minimal defenses." Tark nodded, his blue-gray skin crinkling around his eyes as he smiled. "Any sign of resistance?" "None, sir. Just like the other systems. We detect evacuation ships leaving the 3rd planet, but no military vessels." This was the 7th human system they had entered in 2 weeks. Each time, the pattern was the same. The humans fled rather than fight. It puzzled Tark, but he wasn't complaining. Easy victories meant quick promotion. "Send the standard message," Tark ordered. "This system is now under Araxian control. Any humans remaining must surrender immediately. Lieutenant Grell, the communications officer, transmitted the message. Moments later, he turned to Tark with a confused expression. "Sir, we're receiving a response. It's unusual." "Put it on the main screen," Tark commanded. The screen lit up with a simple text message. "We acknowledge your presence." Tark frowned. Not a surrender, not a challenge. Just acknowledgement. "Sir," Navigator Locks called out. "Sensors show all. Human ships have now left the system. The planets appear to be completely evacuated." "They're running scared," Tark announced confidently to his crew. "The mighty humans afraid to even face us." His officers laughed. Only Officer Mech, recently transferred from Captain Reed's ship, remained silent. Tark noticed. "You disagree, Officer Mech?" Mech hesitated. "Sir, Captain Reed believed this was a strategy, not fear. The humans are drawing us in." "Captain Reed," Tark said with clear disdain, "is currently being questioned by Imperial intelligence for spreading panic. The humans retreat because they know they cannot win." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what questioning meant. Reed had voiced concerns one too many times. Tark turned back to the viewport. "Begin standard occupation procedure. Send scout ships to the outer planets." 4 scout ships departed the fleet, heading toward different parts of the system. The bridge crew watched their progress on the tactical display. 3 hours later, Scout Ship Talon 3 reported something unusual. "Commander," the pilot's voice came through slightly distorted. "We're detecting strange energy readings near the asteroid belt. It's not matching any known signature." "Probably mining equipment the humans abandoned," Tark replied. "Investigate, but keep your distance." "Yes, sir. Approaching now." "The readings are... Wait. Something's wrong with our systems. Engines are fluctuating. Sensors are..." The transmission cut off abruptly. "Talon 3, report," Tark demanded. Silence answered him. Tark ordered Talon 2 to investigate. This scout also went silent after reporting similar system failures. A small knot of worry formed in Tark's stomach. 2 ships lost was no coincidence. He ordered the fleet to move to alert status. "Sir," Lieutenant Grell said, "Admiral Clev is requesting an update. What should I tell him?" Tark considered his options. Admitting problems would make him look weak, but lying to the Admiral was dangerous. "Tell him we've encountered minor resistance," Tark decided. "Nothing the Vanguard cannot handle." Later that night, alone in his quarters, Tark reviewed the sensor logs from the missing scouts. Something bothered him about the readings before they went silent. The energy signatures were like nothing in the Araxian database. A soft chime announced, "A visitor." Officer Mech entered, looking uncomfortable. "Sir, I've been analyzing the data from our lost ships," Mech said. "I believe I've found something important." "Speak," Tark ordered. The energy readings matched descriptions of a theoretical technology, something Intelligence Officer Dren mentioned before she disappeared. Mech swallowed hard. "It's called quantum phasing. The humans have been researching it for years. And what exactly does this technology do?" Tark asked, his voice lower than usual. "It allows matter to partially exist in multiple states simultaneously, like being visible and invisible at the same time, or being present but untouchable." Tark laughed, though it sounded forced even to his own ears. "That's impossible. You cannot be 2 things at once." "Humans have different physics than we do," Mech said quietly. "They understand quantum mechanics in ways we don't." Tark stood suddenly. "Enough. This is the kind of talk that got Captain Reed in trouble. We are the Araxian Empire. We have conquered 50 species. No technology can stand against us, especially not from primitive humans." The next morning, Tark ordered the fleet to advance deeper into the system. As they approached the second planet, sensors began picking up unusual readings again. "Sir," Navigator Locks called out, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm detecting thousands of small objects all around us. They appear and disappear from our sensors." "A sensor malfunction," Tark insisted. "Run diagnostics." Already did, sir. The system checks out fine. Whatever we're seeing is real, or at least partly real. Tark felt the knot in his stomach tighten. Show me. The tactical display revealed what looked like a cloud of tiny dots surrounding the fleet. Each dot appeared for a second, vanished, then reappeared elsewhere. There was no pattern Tark could discern. What are they? He whispered. As if in answer, every screen on the bridge suddenly displayed the same message. You sought combat with us, yet you will not find what you expect. Last warning. They're trying to scare us, Tark announced to his increasingly nervous crew. Ignore these tricks. Continue forward. 3 more ships vanished that day. No explosions, no debris. They simply stopped responding, their signals disappearing from all monitors. That evening, Tark sent his daily report to Admiral Clev, downplaying the losses and blaming them on navigation errors. But he was starting to doubt his own words. As he tried to sleep that night, Tark's thoughts kept returning to what Officer Mech had said. Quantum phasing. Being and not being at the same time. It seemed like magic, not science. The next morning, the fleet approached the innermost planet of the system. This was where the humans had their main colony now evacuated. Taking this planet would complete their conquest of the system. Sir, Lieutenant Grell suddenly called out. We're receiving a direct communication request. It says it's from the human commander. Tark straightened his uniform. Finally, a surrender. Put it through. The screen remained dark, but a calm voice filled the bridge. Commander Tark of the Araxian Empire. You have ignored our warnings and lost 7 ships as a result. We did not destroy them. Their crews are safe, simply elsewhere. We have no desire for war, but we will defend what is ours. You've been looking for our dreaded ships, but you will never find them. Not as you understand ships to be. Show yourself, Tark demanded. Face us like warriors. That's the problem, Commander, the voice replied. You think of war as warriors facing each other. We left that concept behind long ago. Look outside your viewport. Now, Tark turned to the massive window. At first he saw nothing unusual. Then, like a mirage coming into focus, something appeared. It wasn't a ship. It was thousands, perhaps millions of tiny objects, each no bigger than his hand, moving in perfect coordination. Together, they formed a shifting, flowing pattern all around his fleet. Sometimes they looked solid. Sometimes they seemed to fade into transparency. What is this? Tark whispered. This is just one small part of what you've been calling the dreaded ship, the human voice answered. It doesn't exist as a single vessel. It exists as a network, quantum-linked, partially phased, always changing. You cannot target what isn't fully there. For the first time in his career, Commander Tark felt true fear. He realized that the Araxians hadn't been winning at all. The humans had been leading them exactly where they wanted them to go. Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of the Invincible, the largest warship ever built by the Araxian Empire. At 3 kilometers long, it carried enough weapons to destroy an entire planet. Its black hull absorbed light rather than reflected it, making it look like a moving shadow among the stars. Status report, Voss demanded, his deep voice echoing across the silent bridge. Officer Dell stepped forward, trying to hide his nervousness. Admiral, we've entered the Proxima system. Commander Tark's Vanguard fleet awaits our arrival. Voss nodded. He was not pleased with the reports from the front lines. 32 ships lost in 3 weeks, with no explanation Voss found acceptable. Commander Tark's latest communications had been strange, talking about invisible enemies and quantum ghosts. The High Command was losing patience. Put Commander Tark on screen, Voss ordered. When Tark's face appeared, Voss was shocked. The once confident commander looked exhausted. His skin had faded to a pale gray and his eyes darted nervously. Admiral Voss, Tark said, attempting to straighten his posture. Welcome to the front lines. Report, Commander. And I want facts, not ghost stories. Tark swallowed visibly. Sir, the situation is not what we expected. The humans have developed technology we don't understand. They don't fight conventionally. They use some kind of distributed system. Distributed system? Voss repeated with obvious disgust. You mean they have multiple ships? That's hardly new. No, sir. Not ships as we understand them. Millions of tiny devices that work together. They appear and disappear. Our weapons can't lock onto them, our shields can't block them. They get inside our systems somehow. Voss fought to control his temper. Commander Tark, you sound like you've lost your nerve. Perhaps you need rest. I'll take command of the Vanguard personally. Relief washed over Tark's face. Thank you, Admiral. I'll prepare for your arrival. After ending the transmission, Voss turned to his second-in-command, Major Pike. What do you make of that? Has Tark gone mad? Pike hesitated. Intelligence reports suggest something unusual is happening, sir. Several intercepted human communications mention something called Ghost Protocol, and they refer to their fleet as the Phantom Network rather than individual ships. Voss waved dismissively. Psychological warfare make us fear what doesn't exist. The humans are clever, I'll give them that. There's more, sir, Pike continued. One of our cruisers, the Dauntless, managed to record visual contact with something before it went silent. The footage was sent back to us. Voss raised an eyebrow. Show me. The main screen switched to show recording from the Dauntless. It showed normal space, then a strange shimmer appeared like heat waves rising from hot ground. The shimmer formed into a loose cloud of small metallic objects, each about the size of a fist. They moved in perfect coordination, sometimes forming shapes that almost looked like letters or symbols. What am I looking at? Voss demanded. We believe these are the devices Commander Tark mentioned, Pike answered. The recording continues for another 3 seconds, then all systems on the Dauntless shut down. And the crew? No bodies found. The ship was completely empty when our rescue team boarded it. Life support was functioning. Food was still warm in the dining hall. It's as if the crew simply vanished. For the first time, Voss felt a flicker of unease. He quickly suppressed it. Analyze every frame of that recording. I want to know exactly what those objects are and how they work. 2 days later, Voss's fleet joined with Tark's remaining ships. The combined force was impressive. Over 150 vessels, the largest military gathering in Araxian history. Voss called a meeting of all ship captains in the fleet. They gathered in the Invincible's massive strategy room, with Commander Tark sitting quietly in a corner, looking relieved to no longer be in charge. Our mission remains unchanged, Voss announced. We will secure this human system, then push forward to their core worlds. Yes, we have experienced some unusual resistance, but nothing the Empire cannot overcome. An officer Voss didn't recognize stood up. Admiral, with respect, we don't understand what we're fighting. My ship lost power 3 times yesterday. Each time, those things were detected nearby. Murmurs of agreement spread through the room. Voss slammed his fist on the table. Enough. We are Araxians. We have conquered 50 species. We will not be defeated by tricks and illusions. Just then, the lights flickered. The room's holographic display sputtered, then changed to show a single sentence. We are already here. Panic erupted as officers looked around wildly. Voss roared for silence. A hacking attempt, nothing more, he insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. Return to your ships. We attack at dawn. That night, as Voss studied battle plans in his quarters, a knock came at his door. It was Officer Dren, recently transferred from intelligence headquarters. Her arrival had been unexpected, but Voss had been told she had special knowledge about the human threat. Enter, Voss called. Dren stepped in, carrying a datapad. Admiral, I've been analyzing the patterns of our system failures. There's something you need to see. Speak quickly, Voss said impatiently. The failures aren't random. They follow a pattern. Dren displayed a complex chart. Each malfunction occurs exactly 3.14 seconds after a quantum fluctuation is detected. It's deliberate. They're showing us they have control. What are you suggesting? The humans aren't trying to destroy us, Admiral. They could have done that already. They're communicating, testing us, seeing if we understand. Voss frowned. Understand what? That conventional warfare is obsolete. Their phantom network isn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It's a new paradigm. These devices can phase between dimensions, exist in multiple places simultaneously. Our sensors can only detect them when they choose to be seen. Voss stood towering over Dren. You sound like you admire them. I study them, Admiral. There's a difference. Dren met his gaze without flinching. The point is, we cannot fight them conventionally. We need to adapt. And how do you suggest we do that? Voss asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Before Dren could answer, alarms blared throughout the ship. Voss rushed to the bridge, Dren following close behind. Report, he demanded. Admiral? The tactical officer stammered. We're detecting those objects everywhere, thousands of them. Inside our shields, some are inside the ship itself. On the main screen, Voss could see them now. Small metallic orbs, appearing and disappearing, moving through solid objects as if they weren't there. Open fire, Voss ordered. At what, sir? We can't lock weapons on them, they're not fully here. As if responding to his words, the objects began to gather, forming a rough shape in space. It took a moment for Voss to recognize what he was seeing, a perfect replica of the Invincible, constructed entirely of the tiny devices. Then, impossibly, a human voice came through every speaker on the bridge. Admiral Voss, your understanding of warfare is outdated. You search for our dreaded ship, but it doesn't exist as you understand existence. We are everywhere and nowhere. We could destroy your fleet right now, but that is not our purpose. Who are you? Voss demanded. Show yourself. I am Captain Miller of the Earth Defense Force. As for showing myself, I already am. Part of my consciousness exists within this network you see before you. Another part remains in human space. I am both places at once. Voss felt a cold realization wash over him. The humans hadn't been retreating out of fear. They had been positioning themselves, watching, learning. And now they were demonstrating power beyond anything the Araxians had imagined possible. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Voss considered the possibility that he might be outmatched, not by superior numbers or firepower, but by an entirely different understanding of what warfare could be. What happens now? He asked quietly. The shimmering replica of his ship dissolved, the tiny devices spreading out once more. That, Captain Miller's voice replied, depends entirely on you. The Araxian command ship Invincible hung motionless in space, surrounded by the remainder of the once proud invasion fleet. On the bridge, Admiral Voss sat silently in his command chair, staring at the main screen. It showed only stars and the distant glow of the system's sun, but he knew they were out there, the phantom devices, watching, waiting. Admiral, Major Pike said quietly, the fleet commanders are requesting orders. Do we attack or retreat? Voss didn't answer immediately. His mind raced through military strategies, tactics he had used for decades to win countless battles. None seemed relevant anymore. Call a war council, Voss finally ordered. All ship commanders and intelligence officers. 1 hour. When the fleet's leadership gathered in the Invincible's strategy room, the mood was tense. Gone was the usual Araxian confidence. Instead, worried faces looked to Voss for guidance. Commander Tark sat in the corner, still looking shaken from his experiences. Officer Dren stood near a display screen, data pad in hand. Captain Reed, recently released from questioning, had been invited at Dren's insistence. We face an enemy unlike any the Empire has encountered, Voss began, his voice solemn. I have reviewed all reports and recordings. I have spoken with our intelligence experts, and I have come to one conclusion. We do not understand what we are fighting. Murmurs spread through the room. Such an admission from the Empire's greatest admiral was unprecedented. Officer Dren, Voss continued, explain your analysis. Dren stepped forward, activating the room's holographic display. The human defense system we've been calling the dreaded ship is not a ship at all. It's a distributed network of quantum-linked devices. Each unit is capable of partial dimensional phasing. Speak plainly, one of the commanders demanded. They can exist partly in our dimension and partly in another, Dren explained. This is why our sensors can't lock onto them and our weapons pass through them. They become solid only when they choose to. She displayed images captured from various ships. The units appear to be controlled by a combination of artificial intelligence and human consciousness. They act as both sensors and weapons. They can move through solid matter, including our hulls, shields, and even crew members. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Captain Reed stood up. I've studied the pattern of our ship losses. None were actually destroyed. In every case, the crew was removed somehow. The humans are avoiding killing. Removed to where? Someone asked. We don't know, Reed admitted. But the human commander said they were safe. I believe they've been taken to some kind of holding area, possibly through the same dimensional phasing technology. Voss leaned forward. The question is not where. Our people have gone, but what we do now. Our weapons are useless against this technology. Our shields offer no protection. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Dren stepped forward again. Admiral, I believe I understand what the humans want. They've had multiple opportunities to destroy our fleet. They haven't. Instead, they communicate. They demonstrate their capabilities. They're showing us that our understanding of warfare is outdated. What are you suggesting? Voss asked. That we listen. The humans aren't fighting a conventional war. They've moved beyond it. They see conflict differently. Before Voss could respond, every screen in the room suddenly activated, showing the same message. We offer dialogue. One representative. Unarmed. The officers looked at each other in confusion. It's an invitation, Reed said. They want to talk. Voss stood, his massive frame casting a shadow across the table. And who should accept this invitation? Who among us can understand an enemy that exists between dimensions? All eyes turned to Officer Dren. I'll go, she said without hesitation. 6 hours later, Dren stood in a small shuttlecraft moving away from the Invincible toward empty space. She wore no weapons, as requested. Instead, she carried only a data pad containing all the information the Araxians had gathered about the human technology. I see nothing, she reported back to the command ship. Just empty space. Then slowly, the space before her shuttle began to shimmer. Thousands of the small devices appeared, forming a tunnel in space. The shuttle's engines cut out, but it continued moving forward, drawn into the tunnel. I'm being pulled in, Dren reported, her voice calm despite the situation. No sign of conventional ships. The devices they're changing. Through the shuttle's viewport, she watched as the tiny units shifted, merged, and transformed. They began to form a solid-looking structure around her ship. Walls appeared, then a floor, then what looked like human technology. Her shuttle settled onto the newly formed floor. The space around her now appeared to be a room of some kind, constructed entirely from the phantom devices. I appear to be in some kind of meeting room, Dren reported. It's being created around me as I watch. Door formed in one wall, and through it stepped a human. An older male with gray hair and a simple uniform. Intelligence Officer Dren, the human said with a slight bow. I am Captain Miller. Welcome to the Phantom Network. Back on the Invincible, the command crew listened intently as Dren's transmission continued. Captain Miller, they heard her, say, how is this possible? This room, your presence, none of it exists in normal space. That's where you're wrong, Miller replied. It exists precisely where I want it to exist. The units you see are connected quantum mechanically. They can manifest in physical space or retreat to a probability state. They can form any structure I imagine. One person controls all this? Dren asked, incredulous. Not alone. My consciousness is linked to the network along with several others. We guide it. The artificial intelligence handles the details. Together we can create anything, anywhere. We can be everywhere and nowhere. On the bridge of the Invincible, Admiral Voss listened with growing understanding. The humans hadn't built bigger ships or more powerful weapons. They had completely reimagined what warfare could be. "Ask him about our missing crews," Voss ordered through the communication link. They heard Dren relay the question, and Miller's response came clearly. "Your people are safe. The network transported them to a containment facility near Earth. No harm has come to them. They are being treated well." "How?" Dren asked. "How did you remove entire crews without a trace?" "The same way I'm speaking to you now," Miller explained. "By manipulating the boundary between dimensions. Your people were phase-shifted, then transported via quantum entanglement. Distance means nothing to the network." As the conversation continued, Voss turned to Reed. "Your suspicions were correct, Captain. This is not a war we can win with conventional tactics." Reed nodded solemnly. "The humans don't think about combat the way we do, Admiral. They've moved beyond physical constraints, beyond ships and weapons, as we understand them." On the screen they could see Dren's shuttle, seemingly floating in empty space. But the transmission showed her inside a room that didn't appear to exist. "They could have destroyed us at any time," Voss realized aloud. "Instead, they chose to teach us." The greatest fleet in Araxian history hovered in space, faced not with defeat by superior firepower, but by the realization that their entire understanding of warfare had become obsolete overnight. Voss made his decision. He opened a channel to Officer Dren. "Tell Captain Miller we wish to discuss terms," he said. "The Araxian Empire is prepared to listen." The massive conference hall on Neutral Station 7 buzzed with activity. Located in unclaimed space between Araxian and human territories, this space station had been hastily prepared for the peace negotiations. Representatives from both species filled the room, their voices creating a constant background hum. At the center table sat Admiral Voss, flanked by his most trusted advisors. Across from them, Captain Miller represented the humans, along with several officers and diplomatic staff. Officer Dren sat in a position between both groups, her role as first contact giving her a unique perspective. Captain Reed stood against a wall, observing. His vindication came with no joy. Too many lives had been disrupted for him to feel satisfied about being right. Admiral Voss cleared his throat, and the room fell silent. 3 weeks ago, Voss began, his deep voice carrying. Throughout the hall, the Araxian Empire entered human territory with conquest in mind. Today, we sit as equals to discuss peace. This is, unprecedented in our history. Captain Miller nodded. "The circumstances are unique for both our peoples, Admiral. We never wanted war. Yet you developed the most advanced weapon system ever encountered," Voss countered. Miller smiled slightly. "We don't see it as a weapon, Admiral. The Phantom Network is primarily a tool for exploration and creation. Its defensive capabilities were developed only when we detected your fleet gathering at our borders." A murmur ran through the Araxian delegation. The idea that such power could be used mainly for non-military purposes seemed impossible to them. "Officer," Dren activated a holographic display showing the tiny units that formed the Phantom Network. "For those who haven't been briefed," she explained, "these devices represent a fundamental shift in technology. Each unit contains quantum-linked particles that can exist partially in our dimension and partially in another." She looked at Miller. "Captain, perhaps you could explain in simple terms how this works." Miller stood. "Imagine a book half inside a box and half outside. You can see part of it, but not all. Now imagine the book can choose how much of itself is visible. That's what our units do, but across dimensions rather than physical space." He gestured, and suddenly thousands of the tiny devices appeared throughout the conference hall. The Araxians gasped, some reaching for weapons that had been left outside. "Don't be alarmed," Miller said calmly. "They're always around us. I'm simply allowing you to see them now." The units moved in perfect coordination, flowing like water through the air. Some passed directly through solid objects, including the stunned delegates. "The network exists everywhere we choose to deploy it," Miller continued. "It can gather information, create structures, or transport matter across vast distances instantly through quantum entanglement. And it can disable our ships without firing a shot," Admiral Voss added. Miller nodded. "Yes. By temporarily phase shifting critical systems, we can render any conventional vessel inoperable. But we can also do this. The units gathered in the center of the room, forming a perfect replica of the Araxian homeworld, complete with its famous ring system. The detail was extraordinary, down to individual buildings in the capital city. This is a live image, Miller explained. The network extends throughout this region of space. It sees everything but intervenes only when necessary. Captain Reed stepped forward. What happened to our missing crews? They're safe, Miller assured him. When your ships were neutralized, the crews were phase-shifted and transported to a facility near Earth. No one was harmed. In fact, Miller made another gesture, and a door at the end of the hall opened. Through it walked hundreds of Araxian military personnel, the missing crews from the lost ships. They looked confused but unharmed. The room erupted in chaos, as families and friends reunited. Admiral Voss watched in silence, his worldview shifting before his eyes. When order was finally restored, Voss asked the question that had been bothering him for days. Why didn't you simply destroy our fleet? You clearly had the capability. Miller's expression grew serious. Because that's the old way of thinking. The zero-sum game where one side must lose for the other to win. We believe there's a better path. He motioned to one of his officers who distributed data pads to the Araxian delegation. These contain the basic principles of quantum phasing technology, Miller explained. Not enough to replicate the network, but enough to begin your own research. We're offering to share knowledge, not as a defeated enemy, but as a potential partner? Admiral Voss looked stunned. You would give us this, after we invaded your territory? Knowledge isn't diminished by sharing, Miller replied. And we believe the Araxian Empire has much to offer in return. Your propulsion systems, for example, are more efficient than ours. Your cultural achievements are impressive. We see potential for mutual benefit. Officer Dren had been studying the datapad intently. She looked up with wide eyes. This challenges everything we understand about physics. It would take decades to fully comprehend. Then we have decades of cooperation ahead of us, Miller said with a smile. The negotiations continued for 3 days. By the end, a treaty had been drafted. The Araxian Empire would withdraw from human territory. A demilitarized zone would be established. Cultural and scientific exchanges would begin immediately. On the final day, Captain Reed found himself standing next to Admiral Voss, watching as the treaty was prepared for signing. I never imagined it would end this way, Voss said quietly. Which way is that, sir? Reed asked. Not with victory or defeat, but with understanding. Voss turned to Reed. You saw it first. The signs that the humans were different, that they didn't think about warfare as we do. Reed nodded. They don't see power as the ability to destroy. They see it as the ability to create, to connect, to transcend limitations. As the delegates gathered for the final ceremony, Miller approached Voss with an unexpected offer. Admiral, we have a tradition when new species join our network of allies. We offer them the opportunity to experience the network directly, to understand it in a way words cannot convey. What would this involve? Voss asked cautiously. A temporary neural link to the network. You would see what I see, feel what it's like to exist partially beyond conventional dimensions. Voss hesitated only briefly before nodding. I accept. Miller placed a small device on Voss's temple. The Admiral's eyes widened, then unfocused as his consciousness expanded. For 5 minutes, Voss stood motionless. When Miller finally removed the device, tears streamed down the Admiral's face. I saw everything, Voss whispered. All the ships in our fleet. Earth, stars being born. It was beautiful. Captain Reed watched as the once feared Admiral Voss, conqueror of dozens of worlds, signed the peace treaty with hands that still trembled from the experience. Later, as the Araxian delegation prepared to depart, Reed approached Officer Dren. What happens now? He asked. Dren looked thoughtful. Everything changes. our understanding of physics, of technology, of warfare, even of consciousness itself. The Phantom Network isn't just a new weapon. It's a new way of existing. She glanced at the humans across the room. They never developed the dreaded ship we feared. Instead, they created something far more powerful, a system that makes conventional ships obsolete. Reed nodded slowly. We thought we understood combat. Until we didn't encounter the dreaded ship, Dren finished with a small smile. Because it never existed in the first place. As Reed boarded the shuttle that would take him back to the Araxian fleet, he looked out at the seemingly empty space around the station. But now he knew better. The tiny units were out there, watching, connecting, existing between dimensions. The Araxians had come seeking conquest through destruction. They were leaving with something far more valuable, a new understanding of what was possible when you stopped trying to destroy your enemies and started trying to transcend your limitations instead.